Trump just told the entire world, supply weapons to Iran and we will tax everything you sell to America by 50%. No exceptions, no negotiations, effective immediately. That is not a warning, that is a declaration. So today, we are breaking down exactly what just happened, why it matters, and what it could mean for the rest of the world, including countries right here in Africa and beyond. Stay with me because this story is bigger than most people are realizing right now. Okay, so here's the simple version of what just happened. The United States and Iran were at war, a real war. US bombers were hitting Iranian nuclear sites. Iran was firing back. The Middle East was on fire. Then, just last night, both sides agreed to a 2-week ceasefire, a pause in the fighting. And right after that ceasefire was announced, Trump woke up, got on the Truth social platform, and dropped two massive statements that are shaking the entire world this morning. Number one, any country that supplies military weapons to Iran will face a 50% tariff on everything they sell to America immediately. Number two, Iran will no longer enrich uranium. And Trump says the US and Iran will work together to clean up the nuclear materials left behind by last year's bombing. It is a lot to unpack, so let us keep it going step by step. Let us start from the beginning, because you need the full picture to understand why this is such a big deal. For years, and I mean many years, the United States, Israel, and several Western countries have been accusing Iran of secretly trying to build a nuclear weapon. Iran always denied it. They said their nuclear program was for peaceful energy purposes only, but the world was not convinced. Then in June 2025, something happened that most people did not think was actually possible. The United States military, using B-2 stealth bombers, the most powerful bomber plane in the world, launched strike on three of Iran's biggest nuclear sites, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. These were not small strikes. These were massive, deep penetrating bombs designed to destroy facilities buried deep underground. Trump said at the time that the strike completely destroyed Iran's nuclear capability and set the program back by decades. Now here is where it gets interesting. Iran at the time of those strikes were enriching uranium at 60%. Now for context, civilian nuclear energy only needs uranium enriched at maybe 3 to 5%. The level needed to build a nuclear bomb is 90%. Iran was at 60%. That is not peaceful energy. That is something else entirely. So after those strikes, the world held its breath. Would Iran retaliate? Would this become a full-blown world war? The answer was kind of yes. The conflict escalated, fighting continued, and for nearly 6 weeks, there was a war happening in the Middle East that many people outside the region were not fully following. Until last night, a ceasefire was reached. A 2-week pause in the fighting between the US and Iran. And as part of that ceasefire deal, something significant was included: the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Now stay with me because this part is very important. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway between Iran and Oman, and through that small strip of water passes roughly 20% of the world's oil supply every single day. If that strait is closed, global oil prices go crazy, fuel prices everywhere spike, economic feel the pressure, including economies in Africa, Asia, Europe, everywhere. Iran had apparently been blocking or threatening that waterway during the conflict. Part of the ceasefire deal is that it reopens, so that is significant for the entire global economy. But that was just the beginning of Trump's announcement. This morning, Trump went further. He posted on Truth Social, and I want you to hear exactly what he said because the words are important. He said, and I quote, A country supplying military weapons to Iran will be immediately tariffed on any and all goods sold to the United States of America, 50% effective immediately. There will be no exclusions or exemptions. 50% on everything from any country that gives weapons to Iran. Let us be honest for a second. That is one of the most aggressive economic threats any US president has made in recent memory. Because think about who supplies weapons to Iran. We are talking about countries like Russia, China, possibly others in the region. Russia and China both sell significant amounts of goods to the United States, billions of dollars worth every year. If Trump hits them with 50% tariff, specifically because they are helping Iran, that changes the entire equation of global trade and geopolitics overnight. And Trump was very clear: no exclusions, no exemptions, no quiet deals behind closed door. He's saying this publicly on record for the entire world to see. But here is where it gets even more interesting. In the same post, Trump also said, and this is wild, that the United States has determined Iran has gone through what he called very productive regime change. Regime change, those are two very loaded words. Now, Iran has a government. It is not like the leadership was removed in the traditional sense. But Trump appears to be suggesting that the strikes, the pressure, and the ceasefire has effectively changed the direction of Iran's government. That whosoever is in charge now is moving in a different direction than before. He said there will be no uranium enrichment by Iran going forward, and that the US and Iran will work together too. In his words, dig up and remove the nuclear materials that was buried when the B-2 bombers hit those facilities last year. This is remarkable because just weeks ago, the US and Iran were actively at war. Trump is saying they will cooperate on a nuclear cleanup. Some people are saying this is a historic shift. Others are saying, wait, let us see if this actually happens. And honestly, that second group has a point, because here is the other side of the story. According to Iranian state media, Iran's proposed deal has some conditions that directly contradict what Trump is claiming. Iran is reportedly demanding that the United States accepts its right to enrich uranium. They also want sanctions reliefs, the lifting of economic penalties that have been crippling their economy for years. Now, Trump says no enrichment. Iran says we want enrichment. Those two positions cannot both be true at the same time. So the question is, the next 2 weeks, why this ceasefire holds? Can these two sides actually reach a real agreement, or this is just a pause before everything goes worse again? What do you think? Do you believe this ceasefire will actually lead to a permanent peace deal? Drop your answer in the comments. Now wait, this is the part most people are not talking about. Trump also said in his post that as a part of talks with Iran, they are discussing, and this is a quote, tariff and sanctions reliefs with Iran. Think about what that means. Trump is simultaneously threatening 50% tariffs on countries that help Iran, while also dangling the possibility of reliefs for Iran itself. It is a classic negotiating move: stick and carrot, punishment for enemies, reward for cooperation. But it also raises a huge question. If Iran gives up on its nuclear program, does it get economic relief? Does it get to rejoin the global economy? Does it get to sell its oil freely again? Because if the answer is yes, that changes the entire power structure of the Middle East. Iran has massive oil reserves. A sanction-free Iran, a completely different player on the global stage. This might surprise you, but some analysts believe that is exactly what Trump wants. Not to destroy Iran, but to force Iran into a deal that brings it back into global economy under American terms. Depends on where you sit. Let me give you my honest take on this. What we are watching is high stakes diplomacy happening in real time. One day there is war, the next day there is ceasefire. This morning there is tariff threats and talk of regime change and nuclear cleanups. This is moving fast and the details matter. The 50% tariff threat is serious. If Trump enforces it, countries like Russia and China will have to make a choice: keep supplying Iran or protect their trade relationship with America. That is not a small choice. The ceasefire is real but fragile. 2 weeks is not long. A lot can go wrong and both sides still have very different demands on the table. The idea of regime change in Iran, that is a sensitive one. Iranians have their own price, their own history, their own politics. Outside powers declaring that a country has undergone regime change is not always received well, even if there is some truth to it on the ground. According to reports, Iranian officials have not directly confirmed everything Trump has claimed in his post, so it is not fully clear yet how much of this is agreed facts, how much is Trump's interpretation of what happened. Let us be honest for a second. The next 2 weeks will tell us everything. Either this becomes one of the most significant diplomatic deals in decades, or it collapses and the conflict resumes. One thing is certain: the world is watching, and the decision made in the next 14 days could affect oil prices, global trade, the security of the Middle East, and the lives of millions of people. If you like this kind of breakdown, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I cover stories like this every single day. I break it down simple, I break it down honest, and I never waste your time. Now let me leave you with these final thoughts. Trump has used tariffs as weapon before, against China, against Europe, against multiple countries, and every single time the world said he was bluffing, and every single time he actually did. Says 50% tariffs on any country supplying weapons to Iran, with no exceptions, no exemptions, effective immediately. The question is not whether he means it. The question is, who is already supplying weapons to Iran, and are they willing to stop? Because if they are not, we are about to see a brand new trade war on top of a military ceasefire, and that combination, that is a story that is far from over. What do you think happens next? Does a ceasefire hold, or does everything fall apart again into 2 weeks? Tell me in the comments. Let's talk about it.